So I guess we're live now. Very warm welcome to everyone who's here joining us from everywhere else around the world. This is a very special fireside chat that we have today with Ming Maa, President of Grab, who has very specially made the time to join us today. Thank you so much, Ming, for making just this very precious 30 minutes of your time.
Thank you, Kristie, for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So we did have a few conversations just off record. Actually, we had to kind of drop it halfway. But maybe if we just kind of take a step back and just big picture. Grab has been through quite a lot this year. 2020, we've seen through a lot. COVID has happened, pandemic has happened, a lot has happened in the ride-hailing space. If you could just give us a really big picture view of what has happened in 2020, anything interesting that we can expect from Grab in 2021, how has COVID also shaped Grab's objectives for this year and the next year?
Yeah, it's a great question, and again, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate the audience for tuning in. You're absolutely right, Kristie. 2020 has been a very challenging year for everyone. And it's I think a year that's highlighted really the differences between resilient businesses from those that are less so. At Grab, our total revenues are now back to well over 95% of our revenues pre-COVID. So we have a little bit more to go, but the direction and the trajectory is absolutely spot on. And as you would expect, there's been just tremendous growth in our deliveries business, far beyond what we originally expected. In fact, it now generates over 50% of our total revenues. And I think this pandemic has really just highlighted one of the advantages of our business model on the supply side of our marketplace, which is, we're really operating in a very unique region. It's a region where motorcycle drivers can do ride sharing, food deliveries, parcel deliveries, all in one. So we can very quickly toggle our driver supply to meet different areas of demand. That allows us to help our drivers maximize their earnings, but it also means that we can provide them the lowest delivery costs in the market. And so that's a very unique difference by being in this market. On the consumer side, there is no question that behavior has changed. Our customers are shopping differently. And what's very encouraging in the data is that even when cities open up, our customers continue to use delivery because of the convenience. So this does seem to be a very durable change in behavior. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention payments and adoption of digital payments has really started to scale. Much safer alternative to handling cash. In fact, what you're seeing now is we see just a 30% growth in first-time cashless payment users across the region. And this is just for food delivery, so tremendous new adoption. So I think a lot of new interesting services now are being accelerated by COVID.
And how is this shaping, some of your plans for 2021? Is there going to be a growing focus on specific aspects of your business? I mean, you guys have always focused on your super app plans. This year, for a long time, I guess Grab has always kind of fashioned itself as a ride-hailing giant. This year, ride-hailing, I think, has taken a bit of a backseat. You've seen food delivery come up front, fintech as well. Are there any specific products or strategy focuses that Grab is looking to execute in 2021?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, first of all, I would say that our overall super app strategy hasn't changed because the advantages, in terms of solving a customer pain point, the lifetime values, the retention rates are just so much more compelling, compared to an approach where we just focus on a single vertical. So that doesn't change. But then within the overall super app strategy, we are adjusting our focus to serve our customers the best that we can in this new normal. And I'm actually really excited about three areas for 2021. First is we're tripling down on deliveries. Absolutely, to your point, tremendous demand for last mile. And I really believe that our customers have embraced deliveries in a very durable way that will persist for just a very long time after COVID is behind us. The second is we're really focused on just going back to our roots, which is to help enable entrepreneurs to do more, to do better. We're investing in our merchant services platform to help our merchants earn more. We're helping them go online. We want to make sure that they benefit from digital adoption, help them with digital marketing, how to better attract, target a much larger audience, and that's key to our business. And then I would say third, we're just very focused on growing our financial services business. Insurance has been a huge success for us. We've originated, I think, somewhere over 20 million paid for policies since we launched that business last year. We've launched our first micro investment product, so you can now invest and save, even if you just have $1 in your wallet. And our goal, of course, is to just continuously keep transforming the idea of financial services with products that are just more accessible, more affordable, and more transparent for every customer.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we have seen as well, and you guys had recently also announced, was this integration that Grab had made with Lazada, especially with regards to logistics and what do you call it? E-commerce in Vietnam. I mean, can we foresee more of such collaborations? Maybe if you could take us through some of the motivations behind this integration, and is this something that we can expect to see, wider in other parts of Southeast Asia?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I wouldn't call this a integration with Lazada, but it's really a partnership with Lazada. And we're very honored to be their partners across a variety of local services, food delivery, last mile logistics. We're also partnered with Lazada in Thailand on different marketing campaigns, and I see a lot more that we can be working on together. But I think probably the more interesting trend that we're seeing is we are becoming, for lack of a better word, just the platform of choice. Particularly for large global companies that want to expand into the region. For example, we have a very broad strategic partnership with Marriott International, where we work on food delivery for all their restaurant properties within their hotel properties. We're doing payment, transport. We're integrating loyalty and rewards, advertising. So a lot that's going on. We also have a great partnership with Unilever, where we'll be delivering their food products, household products, personal hygiene products to our customers. And I think this list goes on and on. But I think that the reason that we're becoming this platform of choice is it's really because of the scale of the platform that we built now, the customer reach, and frankly, just our ability to go direct to customers, direct to consumers, and having the absolute lowest last mile cost for deliveries. Very, very important. And frankly, just a payment solution that reaches more consumers than any other. And all of that combined together, I think creates a great partnership with many, many global companies.
What kind of growth opportunities can we expect, especially with regards to logistics? I mean, especially that now, you're beginning to see, Grab has their own fleet of drivers. Lazada also has their own logistics backend. What are the opportunities for some of these collaborations on this particular front, and where are some of the growth opportunities specifically for Grab? Considering that you do have your own logistics backend, are there other areas that you're looking to plug?
Yeah, well, I think the use case for last mile logistics is very broad. And I think not only does it cover traditional formal e-commerce marketplaces like a Lazada, where we power the last mile delivery point to point. Many times where we focus on is same day deliveries or instant deliveries, because we believe that consumers, when they order products, they want it now or as soon as possible. And there is a value in being able to receive products same day rather than waiting for 1 day or 2 day. And I think the entire world will, I think over time, shift towards same day, instant deliveries. At the same time, though, I think there's also a very broad market of social commerce. So these are individuals, they may be buying or selling on social media platforms and using our services as a fulfillment for last mile. Because I think particularly now in this day and age, with COVID around, the last thing you want to do is when you purchase and transact, you don't want to meet somebody, in the park and then transact and then take your products away. Using our delivery service is a much better and safer alternative to what's been available.
Yeah, so I mean, for e-commerce, I mean, from my understanding is, Grab e-commerce still comprises quite a small component for Grab at the moment. So I guess you can say that perhaps you can see more of such products from Grab in this particular space moving on to 2021 then.
Well, we're really hopeful that we'll be able to bring all of Grab to our e-commerce partners. So it's not just last mile deliveries, but hopefully partnering with our payment solutions, partnering with some of our local services so that we can really integrate the customer experience and provide a much richer experience for our customers. I think that ultimately is really, I think, the bigger opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I find that quite interesting because, I think the last time we had you with, on our summit, the conversation that
I think this was maybe
had
2 years ago.
It feels like forever. I mean, and so many things have changed, it's like, I mean, just a year ago, 2 years ago, we were talking about Uber, you're talking about Gojek, a lot of the focus was still so much focused on ride hailing. And today we're talking about logistics, you're talking about e-commerce, you're talking about social commerce, right? Like, and the lines of competition has, really drastically changed in Southeast Asia, right? Like, as I mentioned, we were talking about Uber and Gojek not so long ago. Today, we're talking about, other potential competitors in food delivery and payments. Even the likes of like Shopee and Tokopedia potentially, who could be, potential competitors to Grab. Do you foresee them as being meaningful competitors to Grab in the near future?
Well, I think first of all, if I step back for a second, having competition is not only healthy, but I think it's actually critical. It's really important to have competition to ensure that our customers have choice. That's very, very important for a market to develop in the right way. And to your point, I think even today we compete with a variety of different companies in food delivery and grocery delivery, payments, fintech. I also do believe that competition will increase quite a bit over time. We're seeing a lot of digital platforms start to focus on local services like transportation, like food delivery, because what's abundantly clear is just how attractive these markets can be and what value we can provide to our customers. But I think probably what sets us apart is really, I would say, two things. First is we are the only super app with a regional footprint. And at the end of the day, that means on the supply side, having the lowest cost for last mile deliveries. And ultimately, I think that is truly the key to competing sustainably over the long term, having the lowest cost for deliveries. And I think second, we really live and breathe. We live, breathe, execute in an extremely hyper local way. Customers in every country, every city is different, and we avoid the mistake of taking a very cookie cutter, approach to the overall region. Our super app in Singapore looks, feels, functions very differently from our super app in Indonesia, and that's important to do so because unless you hyper locally address the customers, then you will ultimately misserve your customers, in the wrong way.
Wow, so many things to ask you. I mean, when it comes to, I think one of the questions I remember in the last summit that I think you spoke with Georgie the last time, you guys had raised like phenomenal amounts of capital, which I mean, I think you can say this year has been, I wouldn't say has been a shabby year, I think, for Grab on the fundraising front. But given the current circumstances of COVID and the economic crisis and everyone has been very cautious on the fundraising and deploying of capital. I mean, how are you kind of like seeing that particular front? Would you still say that capital is still Grab's defensive moat at a time like COVID? And how challenging has it been with regards to fundraising and deploying of capital during a time like this?
Right. Well, I think first of all, I think capital has never been a defensive mode for us. We've been very blessed to have great investor support. but we've had that support because of the underlying characteristics of the business. So I think capital and support from investors is the result of our moats, not the moat itself. I think our real moat is, the people, the teams that we built, and the culture that we've created. I mean, I've seen a lot of companies, and I've never seen a company with such a genuine core belief in the mission to drive Southeast Asia forward. And it's not a CSR tagline. It's not a headline that we use. Everyone lives and breathes the opportunity to move the region forward. And what we mean by that is, we really want to help make digital services more accessible and more affordable to a large middle economy that frankly has never had access to the same services, the same benefits that you and I take for granted when we wake up every day. And secondly, we really believe in our mission of empowering micro entrepreneurs like our drivers and our small businesses, like our restaurant partners, so that they can also benefit from the digital economy and not be left behind. And I think we have a true belief that if the more that we can help these entrepreneurs out from the informal economy to the formal economy, the more we help to reduce income inequality around the region, and the more we help the region as a whole. And if you actually look at the scorecard on this, we now have over 9 million entrepreneurs on our platform today. Everyone from drivers to mom and pop restaurants to the kiosk at the street corner. In Indonesia, more than 30% of our entrepreneurs have never held a job before joining Grab. And today they're earning incomes that can be up to 4 times the minimum wage in each country. So I think our core belief in our mission and the motivation that I think comes from that is really, at the end of the day, our real moat.
But I mean, as for us specifically, especially with regards to Grab's, ambitions to be that one super app that everyone turns to for everything that they need in their life, for the longest time, I mean, as I did bring up previously, Grab had always had ride hailing at the very core. That of course has changed. Of course, COVID has happened, and now, some of your business units are performing better than others. I mean, how is first of all, in terms of stickiness, how is that fared during this particular time? Because I think that's also a really important component to the success of a super app. And what exactly is going to be the core then if it's not ride hailing? How is that transition like from ride hailing to, I'm seeing, is it fintech, Grab Finance being the core of the use case for the stickability for Grab's product?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think transportation will always be a core for Grab. And if you think about the services that we have built around the super app, which is all around last mile, how do we solve the last mile? Now, the last mile might be a transportation last mile problem. It might be a delivery problem. It might be a payment problem at the last mile. But the common thread that ties together is how do we solve that last mile problem in the most efficient and the most cost-effective way, for our customers. So I think that is ultimately our core. You are right. The financial services market is arguably, one of the largest opportunities in front of us. Well over $60 billion market for digital services alone. And we are right at day zero in financial services. In fact, we have an application in for the first retail digital bank license in Singapore. And one of our beliefs is, because we operate one of the largest marketplaces in the region, we have this huge volume of transactions occurring on our platform. And so that creates a very unique opportunity to provide our customers with the types of payment, financial services, products that are relevant, for them. So, whether it's pay later for our customers buying e-commerce, or it's working capital financing for our merchants, or micro insurance products, these are all the things that we spend a lot of time thinking about. In August, I talked about our auto invest, product in Singapore. First time ever now, customers can now save, even if they have $1 into cash products. So I think we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg on where financial services can go to, and we're just very excited and very honored to be serving our customers this way.
How confident, so Grab is actually has put in the bid with Singtel for the Singapore digital bank license. And we have seen that Grab has begun hiring some key leaders for your team, specifically for your digital banking team. Is it correct for us to assume that you guys are pretty confident of winning the bid?
Well, we're waiting on the MAS for their decision on the license. So it would be premature for me to comment, any further. But what I can comment on is that our digital bank plans haven't changed because of COVID. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think we think it's even more important now to have a banking solution that is accessible and affordable to as many consumers as possible. So we're very excited.
Taking a step back with regards to fundraising, especially, I mean, you guys have raised quite a significant amount of capital this year, even in the midst of this, current COVID pandemic. I mean, how challenging has it been on the fundraising front for Grab during this season? And I mean, do you consider maybe debt to be a cheaper alternative at a time like this? Compared to equity at the stage that you're at?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's nothing new to announce, on the funding or the investment front. So, we're just keeping our heads down and just focused on executing on our super app strategy. And we do view fundraising and partnership as very similar opportunities. And of course, if there are potential partnerships that help us better serve our customers, and of course we'll look at that one by one, but nothing to announce today. Debt obviously is something that will help any company really diversify the capital structure, and as companies become more and more mature, I think the ability to raise debt becomes an option, and it makes a lot of sense. But again, we're keeping all of our options open.
And what about in terms of scaling inorganically? What is Grab's approach and attitude towards inorganic growth, especially with regards to M&A? You guys have deployed all kinds of methods, whether it's M&A, minority investments, Grab Ventures. I know, I mean, the longest time you guys have always taken more of a partnership approach, but has that changed moving into 2021?
I think you hit the nail right on the head. We're always looking for opportunities to partner, with great companies. And in fact, I'm very fond of the saying, if you want to run fast, then run alone. But if you want to run far, then run together. That approach and philosophy, I think, is quite important at Grab. And you're right. I think partnerships can take many different forms. More often than not, JVs, joint ventures, can make a lot more sense than pure investments or M&A, because joint ventures can create really good alignment of interest in a very unique way. And we've had some very successful JVs in the healthcare space, for example, with Being a Good Doctor, in the insurance sector with Zhongan, and the list goes on. And I think COVID has not slowed us down at all. In fact, I do feel like it's the opposite. It's quite clear that digital platforms are converging with respect to the services that they offer. And I think that convergence will trigger a lot of discussions and conversations around partnerships, joint ventures, and investments, I think.
But how much do you find that this, this network that you guys have built for yourself? I mean, you've established and forged so many partnerships, both on your investor base and JDs across the world, not just here in Southeast Asia. Do you ever think that this network sometimes has become a bit of a snag, especially when it comes to building a more coherent strategy and, the need for a super app like yourself to execute at speed?
Yeah, it's a very, very astute question. And I think we're very deliberate about the types of partnerships and the specific areas for partnership that we enter into. And that's specifically done to balance exactly those issues that you raised. I think anything within the core of Grab, which is to do with our last mile solutions, I think we will tend to execute internally. But I think opportunities that are somewhat outside of our core into various adjacencies, where we can really benefit from the learnings of other companies that have already gone through that learning curve. I think those are situations where it makes a lot of sense to partner together. And so you're right, the key is to be very deliberate and very thoughtful about how do you define success in these partnerships, and how do you set up from day one the right environment to make sure that these partnerships will be successful in the future.
Okay. Okay, we're down to the last, I think about 5 minutes, I think. So I probably just ask some last few questions before we start to take a look at some of the audience questions. Something I definitely have to ask you as well is about Grab's ambitions to eventually go public. Has COVID at all affected your own timeline for IPO? Because you guys do have a deadline to list by 2023 in order to avoid a very hefty payout to Uber. Has that changed at all? What are some of broad outline targets on that particular front?
Yeah, there's no change in our thinking around IPO over the timelines. And frankly, we have a very just an amazing partnership and a very constructive partnership with Uber. And I think Uber, like many of our shareholders, they want us to focus on keeping our heads down. They want us to focus on delivering the best service for our customers. They want us to focus on executing on our super app strategy. And I think ultimately, if we stay focused on the operational execution, then an IPO will happen at the right time.
But is there a time that you ideally would like to list, and what kind of milestones are you looking to secure in order to, that would tell you that you guys are ready, or is this really very early in the journey?
Well, there's nothing new to announce, in timing. I think again, I think what our directors and our shareholders really want us to do is just keep our heads down and focus on outserving our customers. I truly do believe if you stay focused on the customer, then everything else will follow from that.
And one thing as well is that you're also based in the US right now. I'm sure you've had your own conversations. We did kind of briefly talk about this earlier with people in the investment community in the US. I'm sure a huge part of what you do as well is also being able to sell the Grab brand to the public investors in the US, important stakeholders there as well. How has the reception been like, and how have those conversations been like in the US, given that Southeast Asia is still a very, very new market to many US investors?
Yeah, well, first of all, I still spend the majority of my time, in Southeast Asia. But I do think, when you speak to the investor community, many investors are more inclined to look at, China or other large developing markets for obvious reasons. But and I think in many ways there are a lot of similarities between Southeast Asia and China. 10, 12 years ago. There's 650 million people in this region. That's twice the population of the United States. Some of the most densely populated cities on the face of the planet. As you know, it's very young. Gen Z is a third of the population. Very strong middle income class that has disposable incomes, and this middle class is growing. It's not hollowing out like you see in other mature markets. And I think these consumers are just absolutely smartphone native. In many situations, I think they're skipping traditional service providers in favor of mobile first companies. And we talked about financial services, but 70% of consumers in Southeast Asia are underbanked or unbanked altogether. So that creates an opportunity, because we don't need to necessarily convince our customers to switch from a bank to a wallet. In many instances, our wallet is their first experience with a financial institution. So we're skipping generations of service providers. And we're building a lot of the infrastructure, whether it's payments or last mile logistics, a lot of the infrastructure that has historically held the region back. And we're building this infrastructure not just to grow our own business, but to also help other tech companies grow digital penetration in the region. And I think all of this is now being hopefully more and more seen by the investment community globally.
Okay, last question before we wrap up. Still keep in line with IPO markets in the US. One thing that we did see this year as well was C Group had a really remarkable rally in the earlier part of this year, which I guess caught a lot of us here in Southeast Asia by surprise, I would say. But I don't know how Grab, how would a company like Grab be reading this? Do you think this is some sort of validation by the US market for the opportunity that Southeast Asia has? Or do you think, these are just some market forces at play with, a lot of investors that are flush with cash kind of driving the market at this point of time? How are you kind of reading some of these market movements?
Well, I think that's probably a better question for C Group, but I certainly hope so. I certainly hope that this is a sign of greater awareness and appreciation of the markets here. And frankly, we're rooting them on. I think the more companies that IPO globally from Southeast Asia, the more awareness becomes developed, and we really want to cheer these companies on.
Okay, I think we have come to the end of this session. Thank you so much, Ming, for making the time to speak with us today. Thank you for everyone for tuning in, and I hope to see all of you again soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kristie.
Thank you, Ming. Bye.
Bye.